What if the person you love the most never truly left? What if, years after you buried them, you walked back into the same house, and they were waiting for you, unchanged, untouched by time? Tonight, Evelyn returns to the place she swore she would never see again. But what she finds inside will make her question everything she thought she knew about life, death, and love that refused to fade. This is not just a story of regret, it is a story of what happens when love waits, a lifetime too late. The air was still, heavy with the scent of rain. Evelyn stood at the gate, her fingers trembling against the cold iron. The old house before her looked smaller than she remembered. Its paint had peeled away like forgotten memories, and the windows seemed to stare back at her with hollow eyes. A single lantern flickered near the porch, casting long, uncertain shadows. She took a slow breath, the damp air filling her lungs with a familiar ache. Every step forward felt like trespassing into her own past. The gravel crunched under her boots, echoing too loudly in the silence. A thin mist began to crawl along the ground, wrapping around her ankles like smoke. She could almost hear the laughter that once filled these walls. Her father's voice, her mother's soft hum, and his. The memory hit her harder than the cold wind. That night, the night she left without looking back. A creak broke the silence, the door, still unlocked after all these years. She hesitated. Her reflection shimmered faintly on the glass, older, heavier, lonelier. She pushed the door open. The smell of old wood and forgotten time greeted her. Dust floated through the thin beam of moonlight cutting across the floor. Every piece of furniture was covered with white sheets, like ghosts resting in their graves. She reached for the piano. Her hand brushed the cloth, and a cloud of dust rose around her. She lifted the cover, revealing the yellowed keys beneath. Her fingers pressed one note, a broken, cracked sound. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. On the piano sat a frame. She wiped the dust away. It was a photograph, two people smiling, frozen in a moment that once promised forever. Her heart twisted. His eyes, bright and alive, looked back at her through time. A faint noise echoed from upstairs. She froze. It was soft, almost hesitant, footsteps. Her breath caught in her throat. The air grew colder, thicker. She turned her head toward the staircase. Every instinct told her to leave. But her feet refused to move. The steps continued, slow, deliberate, descending one at a time. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She whispered his name, barely a breath. The sound of footsteps stopped. The silence that followed felt alive. A shadow appeared at the edge of the stairs. Familiar. Impossible. Her knees weakened. Her voice trembled. Is it really you? No answer came, only the sound of the wind slipping through the cracks in the walls. The figure stepped closer, and she saw his face. The same eyes. The same smile. But colder. A chill ran through her. He looked unchanged, untouched by the years that had broken her. Her hand shook as she reached toward him. The room seemed to hum, faintly vibrating with something unseen. He spoke her name, his voice low and distant, as if echoing from another world. You came back, he said. Her lips parted, but no words escaped. His gaze shifted toward the clock on the wall. It ticked, steady, loud, alive. Then it stopped. The air fell silent again. And she realized something she could not explain. He was standing where she had buried him. Evelyn could not breathe. Her heart hammered in her chest, each beat echoing through the still house like a drum of warning. She blinked once, twice, hoping the sight before her would dissolve into memory, into the safety of the past. But he was still there. Daniel. His name formed silently on her lips, trembling like a secret the air itself refused to carry. He stood at the foot of the staircase, bathed in the pale light leaking through the broken window. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes, those same gentle eyes, held a quiet grief that seemed too real, too alive. Evelyn's throat burned. She wanted to run, yet her feet felt cemented to the floor. The room seemed to bend around him, the air thickening with something heavy, something ancient. Her voice cracked when she finally found the strength to speak. How is this possible? Daniel tilted his head slightly, the same way he used to when trying to understand her fears. You never came back, he whispered. His tone was calm, almost soft, but the words cut through her like a blade. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought I had time, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words broke as they left her mouth, as if they carried the weight of every regret she had buried inside her. He stepped closer. The floorboards groaned beneath his feet, though she could not hear the sound of his breathing. Evelyn's fingers brushed against the piano behind her for balance. The photograph still sat there, the two of them, young, full of dreams. He stopped just a few steps away. You left, Daniel said, his tone shifting, the sorrow in his voice now laced with something colder. You promised you would come back before the spring. I waited. Her hands shook. I wrote to you. I sent letters, she whispered quickly. You never replied. He looked at her, that same look of quiet disbelief that once made her chest ache. I never got them, he said. His eyes drifted toward the window, where raindrops began to fall. Each drop tapped against the glass, a steady rhythm like a slow heartbeat. I waited here, he continued. Every night. Until the last one. Evelyn felt her chest tighten. I was going to return, she said. I wanted to explain. But then, I heard you were gone. Daniel's face darkened, the faint light flickering across his features. You did not come to see, he said. You just believed. His voice grew softer, lower, carrying an ache that seemed to seep into the walls. I was still here. The words chilled her more than any winter wind. The house groaned, the old beams shuddering as if reacting to his voice. Evelyn took a step back, shaking her head. No, she whispered. You were buried. I saw the grave. He lifted his eyes to hers, unblinking. You saw a stone, he said quietly. But you never looked beneath it. The lantern flickered violently, and for a moment the light dimmed. In that brief shadow, Daniel's face seemed to shift, the edges of him fading, as though he was not entirely there. Her breath hitched. Daniel, she said, her voice trembling. If you are here, why now? He stared at her, his expression unreadable. Because time is thin tonight, he said. And because you finally remembered. The wind howled through the cracks, the sound like a distant wail. The photographs on the wall rattled slightly. Evelyn felt tears spill down her cheeks. I never stopped thinking about you, she said. Every day I thought I would make it right. He smiled faintly, but it was not the smile she remembered. You came back, he said. But you came too late. Her knees buckled, and she caught the edge of the piano to steady herself. His words echoed in her mind like a bell, clear, haunting, final. You came too late. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room for an instant. And in that flash, she saw it. A dark stain across the wooden floor, half hidden beneath the old rug. It pulsed faintly in the light. Her breath froze in her chest. I never wanted you to see this, Daniel said, his voice distant again. The air grew thick, heavy, almost impossible to inhale. Evelyn reached for the rug, her hands trembling as she lifted it slowly. The mark beneath was deep, carved into the wood, not painted. It was a circle, uneven and crude, with symbols etched along its edges. Her heart pounded louder than the storm outside. What is this? She whispered. Daniel looked down at the mark, then back at her. It is where I waited, he said softly. The room seemed to tilt. She stumbled backward, her eyes darting between him and the floor. You are not real, she said, her voice breaking. You cannot be. Daniel took another step forward. His hand lifted, slow, deliberate, reaching for her cheek. She could feel the air move against her skin, but not the warmth of touch. It was cold, empty. I was real, he said quietly. Until you stopped believing I was. The words struck her like thunder. Her tears came faster, blurring the edges of the room. The ticking clock on the wall started again, fast, frantic, unnatural. She turned toward it, startled, and when she looked back, Daniel was closer. His face was inches from hers. You left me between moments, he whispered. Between life and memory. A chill ran through her entire body. She tried to step back, but her legs refused to move. I did not know, she said, sobbing. I swear I did not know. His expression softened, a flicker of sorrow crossing his eyes. I know, he said. But knowing does not change the end. The clock's hands spun wildly now, spinning faster until they blurred into a single circle of motion. The wind slammed against the windows, the house shuddering under the force. Evelyn covered her ears, but the sound was inside her head, the ticking, the wind, his voice. Then everything stopped. Silence. Stillness. Even the rain hung motionless against the glass. Daniel's face was calm again, almost peaceful. This place holds what time forgot, he said softly. And now it holds you. Her heart stopped for a beat. What do you mean? She asked, her voice shaking. He stepped closer, his form flickering like smoke in a gust of air. You returned to what was never meant to be opened, he said. The circle was sealed by your leaving. She tried to speak, but her throat felt locked. You came back, he said again, voice fading, and now time will remember. The lantern went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Only the faint outline of his eyes remained, glowing faintly in the blackness, like